what's happening in his head is definitely good for our country.
First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Pillai, for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure watching you, reading you, and now it's a pleasure talking with you. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Gerard, for having me on this particular chat. I would say because I'm going to learn a lot of things from you as well.
That's the spirit, I would say. So, sir, I would jump right into I won't say the elephant in the room, but the intellectual in the room. How did you come across Chanakya? And was there any specific, motive behind learning him? Or was it something that you ran into accidentally?
So how did I run into Chanakya? I think the starting point for everyone is the same because everybody gets introduced to Chanakya in our Indian system, directly or indirectly. Some of you must have read stories, some of you must have heard stories, some of you must have seen some serials or YouTube, videos on Chanakya. So I think knowing Chanakya is not a difficult thing in India, or for Indians, is a known character. Starting point was the same, but how did I dwell into it more deeper is the right question because not everybody studies Chanakya the way I have been fortunate. So after knowing about Chanakya, this was many years ago, almost 25 years ago, when I got interested much more at the deeper level because I became an entrepreneur. I
Oh,
remember when I was working and I started my own company, and at that particular time, I was thinking, I have been educated in the Western system of management. Nothing wrong. I think we should learn from every part of the world. So when I started my own first company, my venture, I was asking myself, is there no management techniques which is original to India? So we can learn from everywhere, but at the same time, was thinking, what is the Indian management model? Or
agreed.
is there a management or leadership guru from India? And when I started thinking and reading a lot on that, fortunately, I had a lot of good reading habits. So I came across this particular book called Kautilya Arthashastra. And that's when I studied, understood it, went on to do my Sanskrit, MA in that, PhD in Arthashastra. And that's when I realized it's a gold mine which has not been explored. And for the last almost 25 years, I've been only doing three things: learning, teaching, and writing on Chanakya.
That's great, sir. I feel there hasn't been any Indian author per se who has written on Chanakya that extensively the way you have. So I feel you many people also call you the modern day Chanakya reborn and all of those titles as well. So that's a great thing. But so while learning Chanakya, was there any point where you felt ki, this happened in India now as well? The thing that he's saying back then happened now as well, and how did I miss it? It was so obvious, but it happened. So was there some sort of movement like that?
Yeah, it's called the Deja Vu movement, right?
Definitely, the deja vu movement.
Yeah, yeah. So you are absolutely right. While studying the Arthashastra, I could see a lot of things happening, not only in India, but also globally. There's a very famous statement, which is there in Indian culture: Raja Kalasya Karanam. So,
Okay.
as the king, so the era. As the leader, so the organization. So, I'll give you two examples. The first
Okay.
one being in a corporate world. In companies, in startups, we see success or failure depends on the quality of the leader and his or her leadership skills. I could see the same industry, somebody succeeds, somebody fails. And I was started thinking, what is the reason? Simple one line: the way the leader takes the organization forward or backward. And the first deja vu moment was, wow. So Chanakya said the same thing thousands of years ago, saying that as the leader, so the organization. The second one we see even the political circles, be it the prime minister or chief minister of any state, if he or she is good,
Yeah.
I think the whole country, we can see currently what our Prime Minister Modi ji is doing. So the whole Digital India campaign, the whole resurgence of the Indian culture is coming back. Not only in India, I could see that even when Obama was actually the president of America for 2 terms, you'd be surprised, he was the kind of a leader that America wanted. And it is not just about politician or a political leadership position. Obama actually got elected for his family values.
Ah, yes,
Many people
correct.
don't know this. And not only as a leader himself, but his wife, his children, they were projected as the first family of America.
Yeah.
So think about it globally. I could say, wow, Chanakya said the same thing. So as the leader, so the country, so the organization. These were my deja vu moments.
That is so true. I feel the whole motive that you said. I feel there is also Max Mueller said this in his book, where he said that every idea which has been thought around the world was once thought in India. So I feel that's somewhere very much to the point here. So, sir, coming to politics, you mentioned politics. It's a living room subject for everyone, and every one of us is very much excited and heated when it comes to politics. So, what do you think in Chanakya's Arthashastra? What type of a world does Chanakya look at? Does he look at a socialist framework which is very much controlled by the kingdom or the government per se, or does he look at an individual freedom like structure where everyone does what they are supposed to do, and then everyone comes together whenever there needs to be a community decision taken? Where does he fall into that?
Yeah, it's a very lovely question, I would say, because many people ask me the same question in a different way. What
Oh,
is Chanakya's political model? Is it
oh,
governance? It is monarchy? How is it? What's the model? So I would say it's a mix of all. At
oh,
one
okay,
extent, you'll find him a capitalist. At one extent, you'll find him socialist. At one extent, you'll find him democratic. And another extent, you'll find him even monarchy.
oh, okay,
But everything is centered around one thing: the leader has to be good.
okay,
So I'll give you a simple example. Many people think monarchy is not a good form of governance. I mean, you travel across the globe, and I've been very fortunate to go to countries which is still called a kingdom today.
yeah,
Like if you look at Bahrain, if you look at Oman, many countries in other parts of the world also. So people are actually happy with having one leader who is good. The problem with that particular model is that the leader is gone and the next
yeah,
leader is not as good, then it's a failed model.
agreed,
But
agreed,
coming back, the one common thing about Chanakya's all models is that it has to be good governance. And let me tell you, Indian society for ages have been a mix of multiple factors. So for example, can we be socialistic? Of course, we should be socialistic, but it cannot be only socialistic without productivity.
true,
At one extent, you have to take care of the old people, those people who actually are poor, you have to feed them. But just because you're feeding them doesn't guarantee that they're productive. So
yeah,
Chanakya takes care of the so-called, not so-called contributors, because the old people may not be able to work and maybe give you taxes.
agreed,
Young
agreed,
people, children, they're not supposed to be productive in the economic sense. You have to take care of them. But at the same time, those who are productive should also make sure that they contribute in some way or the other. So at
agreed,
one end, you will find him that he's absolutely an economist. At the other end, you find him highly spiritual. So he talks about the concept of yoga, karma yoga, and udyog in a very big way. So I would
okay,
say, he's a mixed match of all the thing. And of course, Chanakya's model of governance is a unique model based on sound spiritual principles.
okay. So, does he also give importance to religion per se when it comes to a kingdom or a government, or does he believe in a atheistic or a agnostic state or government?
So the concept of religion is very different from what we
Yeah.
understand today and those days. So let me tell you, in India, the world was philosophy more than religion. And let us go back to Chanakya. He was from the place which is modern day Patna, called as Patliputra. And Patliputra then was the capital of Magad, which is modern day Bihar, I would say. Now, what is important to understand the background to understand the thought process. Even before Chanakya was born in Patliputra, the two major so called religions or philosophies were in India at that time Jainism and Buddhism.
Agreed.
In fact, Jainism and Buddhism actually grew across the world from Patliputra or Patna. Now imagine somebody being born there. So already the ecosystem, the atmosphere was full of philosophy. Now, please understand Buddhism was also there, Jainism was also there. But Chanakya was a person from the Vedic philosophy. which today we call as Hinduism. Now, Chanakya used, I would say, he took the best of all. So, in the Arthashastra, you find inputs from Jainism, from Buddhism, from the Vedic culture also. So, I would say his philosophy or religion would be more a nationalistic approach, which has got a combination of everything. So, I would
Agreed.
not say that he was promoting only one side, he was promoting all sides, and very important, something very practical which applies to every section of society.
Agreed. And I feel that's how a society works when everyone puts their hands together and works in unity. I feel that's a very good insight because whenever someone talks about Chanakya, nowadays the so-called critics call out and say, ki, oh, are you talking about a Hindu-led government? Or are you talking about a Hindutva shape of government? But that essentially isn't it because when Chanakya was around, there may not be even the word Hindu. So Chanakya may essentially not even be the per se Hindu that we call today. So yeah, that is very true. So I want to bring this forward with a joint question to it, saying the recently the new Parliament building was inaugurated, and as soon as I saw the ceremony, I was like, "Yo, this is something I want to talk with Dr. Pillai because I don't think anyone has spoken with you on this particular topic." So I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the Sengol which was put into place? Many people criticized it for being like, we are not a monarchy, we are a democracy. But the supporters were like, this is also a side of us that we need to embrace. What do you think about it? And what do you think about it from a Chanakya perspective as well? I would ask.
So very good question. In fact, I'll tell you, we have to understand the philosophy first to understand the application in the new parliament. So please understand, we call it Sengol because as you must have seen, it is something that is very popular in Tamil Nadu, South India.
Yeah.
So symbolically, it's coming from South India. But let me tell you, in Indian culture, it is actually called as Dharma Danda.
Okay.
So what is it? I'll tell you, it is a representation of power.
Okay.
So for example, any powerful person will have a rod with him or her. For example, if you look at IPS officers,
Yeah.
okay, they are been given with a rod. They don't use it for beating up. See, they're high level officers, right? But that baton that we call it is a power that is given to them symbolically. It's a symbol of power. Now, if you look at, if you go to any particular court, judiciary court, you will find there are two people standing with that big dandas.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Here is a person who is a judge sitting on power. Now, coming back, let me tell you, it is not only from South India or Tamil Nadu. This Dharmadanda was used as a symbol that is handed over as a power to the king across India. If you remember, India before Britishers, there's 550 princely states,
Oh,
and every crowning ceremony that we had, be it Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in Maharashtra, was made Chhatrapati, or anywhere in South India or North India, the symbolism was a Dharmadanda. And if you study the rituals of coronation, it's very interesting. In fact, I would suggest all of you to watch a serial called as Upanishad Ganga. It's available on YouTube. You can find it on Chinmaya channel. When Chanakya made Chandragupta Maurya the king of then undivided India, he actually hands over the Sengol or the Dharmadanda and says, here I am giving you to govern, but not for yourself, but for everyone.
okay.
In fact, in the Maharashtrian culture, when this is being done, the coronation, the priest would actually take the rod and hit it on the king's head three times.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's a ritual that is followed, and it is a reminder that the power should not go to the head, and above you is dharma. That's why it's called dharma danda, dharma danda, dharma danda. Many times it is said that when you have power, you can get corrupted, and absolute
definitely.
power can get you absolutely corrupted. So the dharma is not only for the king, but for the whole country. And as they say, nobody is above the law. So
Agree.
I think it's a symbolic thing because it's our culture, our civilization. So getting into the new parliament is absolutely welcome. Because if you look at it, the place where it is being kept, it's for everyone to see. And so
Yeah.
remember, here we are actually forming the laws for the nation, not for ourselves. It's a
Agree.
welcome sign. At the same time, it's a reminder to the leader that nobody, including the leader, is above dharma or the law.
Oh. So I feel the thing that you said about people, priest actually hitting them with the dharmadanda. I feel nowadays, sir, looking at some of our leaders, it needs to be done to remind them that you guys are in power because we voted you there. So yeah, that is very true. Sir, you have worked with whether it be Prime Minister Modi or his cabinet for a lot of events and for a long time now. Uh, do you see Prime Minister Modi also as a, I wouldn't say as a symbol, but how much do you relate him with the Chanakya's ideals for a leader? How do you look at him like that? And do you think there is any upcoming leader like him according to Chanakya or something around that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've been very fortunate to work on so many government of India projects. I work with the armed forces a lot. I work with a lot of projects like International Yoga Day. If
Yeah,
you look at Startup India campaign, all these are very pet projects of not only the Prime Minister but for the government of India. So I would say that I think we are fortunate to have a leader who is leading from the Indian perspective. We have to learn from all parts of the world, no doubt about it. But every leader who understands his own tradition, custom, and culture will always be respected locally and globally. Now, coming back to the point that do I see Chanakya in him? I think I see Chanakya in everybody, including you, Chirag.
that's
In fact, I'll tell you, everybody has got a Chanakya inside him or her. It's a way of thinking. In fact, I would say the greatest Chanakya was Sardar Vallabhai Patel,
oh,
who could unite 550 princely states of India. And you can see often not only Modi ji but also Amit Shah, even Nirmala Sitaraman quoting him. So Chanakya for me is not just about a symbol or a person, but also a way of thinking. And I can tell you today, the way we are talking about Chanakya, when I started 20, 25 years ago, it was like unimaginable. Today, even parents, grandparents, teachers are talking about Chanakya. The next part of your question, after Modi ji, what?
yeah,
Because right now we are in a very interesting phase. History will remember this era as Modi's era. There
agreed,
will be
agreed.
plus and minus in every leader, right? Like for example, if you go back, if you look at maybe Nehru or even Indira Gandhi, or for that matter even Rajiv Gandhi or Manmohan Singh, we can always go back and look at plus and minus. I mean that's for history to decide. But definitely this 10 years and beyond, till whenever he will be the prime minister, it will be known as a Modi era.
Agreed.
Now, what's very important is that the way Chanakya is entering into the Indian education system and the society. I've been very fortunate. I've written 21 books on Chanakya, and all of them are bestsellers. And
Wow.
I've come to your college also. I've spoken
Yeah,
to you
yeah.
personally. So I feel that the question, as Modi ji himself says, today we are in 75 years of Indian independence, but we are getting prepared for the 100th year also. तो अमृत काल के बाद I am sure that particular prime minister or president of India will actually come by learning Chanakya, not just quoting Chanakya.
Agreed.
So I think 140 crore Indians will definitely have a leader who will be also taking India to the next level. So this generation will be known for the Modi era, but future generation will be known for the Chanakyas that will keep coming beyond this generation.
Uh, Sir, the thing that you said about you see Chanakya and everyone, and you do a lot of corporate trainings as well. So I feel as Chanakya has written what a leader should be, he might have also mentioned what a leader should not be. So when you go to these corporates, because why am I asking you this question is because just yesterday there came a video from a particular bank's vice president who was shouting and abusing his fellow employees, which made me really question what a leader should look like. So I wanted to ask what, according to you, or what according to Chanakya was an ideal corporate leader. He may not say corporate, but and majorly what isn't a leader. That is something very important to for people to know.
A very good question. In fact, this whole thing has been answered in detail in my first book, Corporate Chanakya. And in fact, there are 10 chapters in Corporate Chanakya which talks about what a leader should not do.
Oh,
So everybody talks about what a leader should do. That is also important. But equally important is what a leader should not do. So I'll tell you, be it corporate or be it academics, be it military, be it politics. I'll tell you the one simple line which I've written behind also. The attitude of a leader should be Praja Sukhe Sukham Rajnah Prajanam च हिते हितम. प्रजा के सुख में राजा का सुख है. प्रजा के हित में राजा का हित है. Which means in the happiness of the people is the happiness of the leader. And what is good for them is good for me. For example, if you are working in a company, there are two kind of people you have to make them happy: external customers or clients and internal employees.
Agreed.
So if the leader is a tyrant, let me tell you, there is a category of people who work because they need to feed their family.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, today that strategy doesn't work. So today there are a lot of employees I know, they get shouting twice and they leave. And today's generation is not the one who will give up so easily by just listening to somebody who is arrogant.
Yeah.
So I think the one word I would say between an employer and an employee, or between a boss and a subordinate, is called mutual respect.
Yeah.
If somebody is shouting just because he's going to show his power, sorry. In fact, Chanakya said that a king has to listen to the mantri or amatya because he is the one who is actually running the show. So, what is an organization which only has bosses and no employees? And remember, the word happy employees is the strategy forward, not just employees who work for money. Happy employees will take care of the companies and make them good. So now the question is, do you have good bosses and good leaders? And that's where Chanakya's training comes into picture.
Agreed. So I look at it like I haven't worked with a lot of people, but the people that I have worked with, I have often noticed a sense of I won't say ego, but a sense of pride in everyone that they, whether it be through age, they are their age is a lot, so they think they know a thing or two more than, let's say, a 21-year-old person. But there are at times when even a 20-year-old or 21-year-old can give you a suggestion that can help you a lot in your business. But do you think at times people just forget that, suggestions are not age bounded? They are just suggestions. So people often forget this thing, and this leads to a lot of what can I say, lot of losses for the company or the person itself. So how does Chanakya look at this? Does he tell how can you receive feedback or how can you receive criticism or suggestions? How can it be done?
Again, excellent question. In our country, India especially, there is a mindset that the more senior you are always right. That we found in every house also. मैंने तेरे से ज़्यादा बारिश देखी है. I'm more experienced than you. And I always tell this, just because you are senior doesn't guarantee you are mature. Experience doesn't guarantee maturity. Maturity is a different ball game. So for example, I saw a Marathi movie. I'll quote in Marathi and then I'll explain that in English. There's a small girl. She was asking her father, जेव्हा मी मोठी होणार तेव्हा मी शाणी होणार का? And the girl says, she's asking this question of the dad, and the dad says, जेव्हा तू शाणी होणार तेव्हा तू मोठी होणार.
Wow, wow.
Which means, the child is asking the dad, when I grow up, will I be mature? He said, no. The day you mature is when you grow up. So I'll tell you today in this generation that we have, so much open information, maturity is not a age factor. It cannot be limited to an age. In fact, we have a concept in leadership called as reverse mentoring. Why can't a 21-year-old teach something to a 51-year-old?
Agreed.
If you are 50 years old, you can still learn from a 20-year-old, right?
Agreed.
Especially technology, right? So, there's this joke that when I was young, maybe my generation, if there is an electronic gadget that came into the house, maybe television or a fridge during those days, then the father used to tell the child, "Haath nahi lagane ka, don't touch it, you will spoil it." Now, if an electronic device comes, the father will ask the child, "Please teach me how to use it."
Or it might be the other way. The child would say, "हाथ नहीं लगाने का, खराब हो कर दोगे."
And please understand this. This is also about age. And when I say age, I'm not talking about biological age, but this age is called information age. Now the question is, can both of them mix match? So we should learn from the experience of elders, and the innovation of youngsters. And all successful companies do that.
Agreed.
Those companies who innovate with the young generation actually are relevant. Otherwise, they will get outdated. The very famous story of BlackBerry, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of the top-notch technological companies at one point of time, but it's gone. So innovation, along with experience, young and the old, will create the change and success that is required.
Very much true. I feel this is a mind opener for me because I looked at age through only through the biological age spectrum, and now I think there are, I guess, 15-year-olds who would also give me a good amount of advice about things. That is very true. So, sir, when you wrote your first book, how did people receive it? Was it well? And was there someone who asked you ki why isn't there any material on Chanakya before? Why wasn't there? I won't say material is in his books were available, but why weren't they made simplified for the people? Before this, was this question ever posed to you? And why? What was the reaction of people after seeing a book on Chanakya?
Yeah. So let me tell you, I'm not the first writer on Chanakya. There were many books before me, many writers before me, because Chanakya is part of Indian culture.
Yeah,
It's like writing your own version on Ramayana or Mahabharata. That freedom is given to you. But that doesn't mean you invented Ramayana or
agreed.
only your translation is original, right? Everybody can interpret it. So my first book, Corporate Chanakya, came in 2010, almost 23 years ago from, sorry, 13 years ago from today. And let me tell you, I had a self-doubt. Who am I to write on Chanakya? I was just 35 years old at that time. I was always wondering, my doubt, mera kaun padega? Because Chanakya is such a big topic. And
Agreed.
somebody who is just 35 years old, who are you to write Chanakya? This was my self-doubt.
Oh,
That my book may not be accepted. But since you asked the question, how was it accepted? Believe me, this book still continues to be a bestseller after so many years.
that is true.
It is part of so many management courses globally in various universities. Whenever I go to IITs, IIMs, even outside India, be it in US or in UK or in Australia, they're teaching corporate Chanakya as a textbook. So I think very few books get that status, right? Where it is available in an airport store and is available in the library of IIT as I am. So I've been fortunate that it has crossed all barriers, age-wise, and also across the globe. Now, coming back, why do you think it was successful? I was thinking about it because 3 years ago we released the 10th anniversary edition.
Oh,
So there was a big, I would say relaunch. I would say saying that okay, it is like success party. So my publishers told me we should write a new forward for it, 10th year anniversary edition, and I was very surprised that when I wrote this, I asked myself this question: why did this book become such a runaway success? And I had only two answers to it. Number one, because the language was very simple. I did not
agreed.
complicate it. It has to be some jargon, something which a common man can understand, even a child can understand. Second thing, it connected to Indian values. So when you study corporate Chanakya, you feel, acha, हमारे देश में भी, there is something that I can be proud of. So you are right. I'm proud of Chanakya, but we should never be arrogant of Chanakya. Say, I also have. I think I've been quoting this very clearly in all my books that I'm as proud as an Indian and I learn from India as much I learn from the West. So
That
I
is
think
true.
I've learned from the best of the West gurus also and from Indian gurus also.
So there is this line that you said in our college, which I use often nowadays. You said ki whenever I teach someone about something great in India, they just go out and boast about it. So the first thing you should do is not boast about it, but just learn about it more and more. So I tell this to a lot of people when someone says कि हमारे भारत में ये सब था. I'm like, हाँ, but how much of it you remember? You don't. So my next question was regarding this only. Uh, when you go to West, like I'm not saying West as in America, but West, people do talk about whether it be Nietzsche or whether it be Kafka, whether it be Plato, Socrates. They all have their fair share of mentions. But I have, and there are very good discussions around it in college, university campuses as well. But I have not seen the same amount of discussions when it comes to Indian philosophers, whether it be Shankaracharya, whether it be Chanakya. There have been none. So my first question was, why is that happening? Even when there are such beautiful material now available so easily to people, why is that happening? And why is there still a fascination with the West that we still have? Is there some way out of it?
So very good question. Please understand, the Western philosophy started with Greece.
Yeah.
If you look at the Greece philosophers, be it Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, lot of them, and I've been very fortunate to go to Greece and even be part of the Athens University.
Oh,
So you'll be surprised today, it is not East versus West. Today,
agree.
the philosophy is East and West.
Understood.
Why this has happened? Maybe because of two reasons. We have been ruled by the Britishers, the Portuguese, the Dutch for a long period of time. So it's natural they will bring their philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I mean, I'm fine. If any new thought comes from abroad, why not? Like you are using technology, I'm using technology. I
Yeah.
mean, so we should adapt to their philosophy also. But the danger is that we could not adapt to our own discussion that happened.
Agree.
And even if the discussions were there, be it Shankaracharya or Ramanuja or Chanakya, they were very closely knit within some groups. They were not coming to public forums.
Exactly.
So, number one, there was no study. So please understand, debating for the sake of winning a prize is not debate. You require to do a lot of homework.
True.
You need to study a lot. And people don't understand the difference between argument and debate.
That is true.
So, what is an argument? I am right. Debate is to find out what is right.
Agree.
We don't do healthy debates in our country, unfortunately. Be it the parliament or be it schools and colleges and universities. I have not seen healthy debates. And believe me, whenever I travel abroad, I find actually they're debating and they do the research before they come. Like a good journalist is supposed to study before asking the right questions. But I can tell you something. I can tell you this very clearly that I remember, Pranav Mukherjee was then the president of India. He had come to Mumbai University, and I'm a director there. So I remember being in his presence. He had come as a chief guest for the convocation ceremony, and he
Oh,
said something very nice. Many people don't know that Pranav Mukherjee was a teacher of political science before he became a statesman. So he said something very nice. Universities and colleges are the only place where you can openly debate about any topic in the world.
yeah.
Unfortunately, inside the universities and colleges, there is more teaching rather than debate and discussions. And today we are taking the Western model, case studies and discussions. I mean, we had case studies. And let me tell you, if you look at our great Indian culture, the teacher can be younger than the students.
Oh,
Yeah, there are so many cases. Like in my own class, I have actually grandparents attending class. I had a father and a son in the same class.
oh,
I had a mother and a son in the same class. So, I mean, imagine debating about marriage when two of them are from two generations, openly talking about sex, openly talking about economic models of India and the West. I think where else do you, and because you don't get that kind of an open debate in a classroom, you do it in the katta outside the
yeah.
college where there is nobody to guide you.
Agreed.
Actually, the discussions have to be healthy, guided by a good teacher who himself is a great philosopher. So I think it's very important that we study the West and the East and have healthy, open-ended discussions to find out what is the truth rather than saying that I know the truth and only I know the truth. Sorry.
Sir, but do you think this is happening also because of the fact that some of the professors and some of the teachers that we have nowadays, I'm not saying gurus, because guru is a very different term, teachers and professors we have nowadays have an inert ideology in them, or have an inert motivation in them to turn students into a certain way, whether it be to turn students into a 9 to 5 rat, or whether it be to turn students into a very powerfully ideologically blinded guy, who, whether it be in universities where people are always shouting, doing sloganeering? Is it something like that? So, do you think that is also happening in universities and colleges nowadays?
So I'll tell you, there's a very interesting research. It said the current education system was designed by the 18th century teachers, and they were taught to the 19th century teachers for the 20th century students who are getting prepared for the 21st century. So you look at the whole design, we are not preparing the students for startups.
Yeah,
We are still preparing students for an industrial era where you have to get a job 9 to 5. It's okay, there'll be certain section of society which will work from 9 to 5, and you require workers in factories and
agreed.
offices. But
Agreed.
if you look at the whole generation, it is already a startup generation, right?
Yeah,
And therefore, the government has to force people and teachers and tell them, listen, please have an incubation center in your college and universities. I think the teachers should not wait for the government or NEP to tell you that, National Education Policy. So you are absolutely right. Most of the teachers themselves are looking for a confirmed government job and want to pass it on to their students saying that you will also get a job. So each colleges a placement cell or an education open-minded opportunity.
agreed.
But fortunately, the things are changing because I'm a teacher myself, and I
Yeah,
see a lot of teachers, and you got good teachers in your college also,
yeah.
and you can see. So what is happening? It's changing, but it's not easy because it doesn't happen overnight. So I would say yes, there is a fault in the system, but the change has already started happening.
That is true. So let's also move at families. Families are a very important part of our life. We spend a lot of time with our families. So, do you think our families, when it comes to Chanakya, did he give any certain principles to families, or how can you build a family efficiently? How can you treat your kids, your partner efficiently? Was there something like that?
So many of them. In fact, I would suggest all of you should read this book called Chanakya Neeti.
Okay.
Okay, I've written one book on that also. You can Google it, you can order it. But I can tell you, family is the first unit in India. We don't think individually, we think like a family. For example, I always ask students, what will you do with the first salary that you get? And the common answer, even today, is I'll give it to my parents or grandparents, right? So, what does it mean? It is because you think for your family. Then I ask them, what do you do if your parents don't have an insurance and you're earning? I spend it on them, right?
Yeah,
So even if you don't have an income, my brother doesn't have an income, my sister doesn't have an income, I will contribute. That's a family culture that we have. And the danger is that we are becoming more individual.
yeah,
And Chanakya said this very nicely, so many things about family. So I'll tell you two things about Chanakya. First thing, family is equal to love, care, and responsibility. So whenever I think about family, oh, I go home, this is a nice place, my mother feeds me. It is very nice to be with family, birthdays and all. But the question to ask is that what is your contribution to the family?
agree.
Family is not a very selfish place, मुझे मिल गया खाना पीना. I know of so many people who actually don't contribute to their family. It is not right. So first thing Chanakya said, family is a responsibility. Second thing, which is very important, even if you don't have a biological family, for example, there are children, who don't have their parents, or vice versa, parents who don't have children. So, does that mean that you don't have a family? That's when the concept of family grows beyond biological family. Chanakya says this, if you don't have a family, then you have a village as a family. Then your country becomes a family. And
Okay.
finally, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the whole world is a family, right?
Yeah,
So, what I'm saying is that start from where you are. So, if you are fortunate to have your parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters with you, then please take some responsibility. It can be as small as spending half an hour with your grandparents at home, but that's a responsibility because nobody speaks to the grandparents nowadays. It could
true.
be as small as contributing maybe the electricity bill of the house if you're earning. Believe me, once you become responsible, the family starts respecting you. In India, we have seen both sides of family, the love of the family and the conflicts of the family.
Agreed.
We've seen a Mahabharat war happening because of conflicts within the same family. and a positive conflict in Ramayana where two brothers say, I don't want the power. So Ram says, I don't want, Bharat says, I don't want. Now, please understand, my dear friends, you will get respect in your family only if you contribute. You will get love from your family even if you don't contribute. मम्मी तो खाना बना के देगी आपको 100%. If you go and talk to your father on a birthday, he will definitely bless you. But my question is that love and care is what you get. But my question is, what did you give to your family? And Chanakya is absolutely clear in his teachings that family has to be contributing from both sides. Otherwise, वो कहते हैं ना हिंदी में दरार आती है. There's always a gap, and sometimes the gap gets so broken that you can't mend it. So contribute to the family, respect the family, love, care, and take care of your family.
Agreed. And I feel this is so different from whatever you read when it comes to West, because there every conversation is very individualistic. Because I have been reading a few philosophers from West. There's this philosopher called Slavoj Zizek. He has been very much about individualism, and he talks about a bit about negation. And this is such a good way to look at it, that for an Indian family, the contexts are so much different. That severely changed when it comes to a Western family per se, and I feel that is something that many people in India forget, because many people want to have lead a very a individualistic, a very nuclear approach to their families, but they don't understand the benefits that they get from a family. Is what I feel. So, coming to parents, because parents do shape us a lot when it comes to our lives. So, sir, how do you think parenting per se? Is there any parenting tips, quote unquote, in the Neeti? Because I definitely think there would be. So, sir, what are some of the parenting tips that, because there is a whole new generation of millennials who are going to be parents for the first time now. So how can they raise their kids in a very better and efficient manner?
Yeah, so I would say that there are a lot of tips on parenting. In
Okay.
fact, the very famous quote about parenting is, for the first 5 years, love the child unconditionally. Next 10 years, discipline him or her. After
Okay.
that, consider the child as your friend.
Oh, that's
So
understood.
this is a principle where when you have a small child till 5 years, you can't train him or her. They are so cute, so small. Their intellect is not that matured or grown. So love them, feed them, take care of them. After that, when the intellect start growing, the benchmark is after 5 years. When you go to school and all, then please discipline them, guide them, tell them what is right and wrong. In Sanskrit, it is called developing Viveka Buddhi. Viveka Buddhi means the ability to discriminate what is right and wrong. But children require that also because they are not seeing the world. That's where parenting has to be more matured. And it doesn't mean you have to beat the child.
Agreed.
Discipline is about understanding right and wrong. And finally, after you're 15, you're almost like an adult, then you should have open discussions one to one. I find this in a lot of families. The child may be 40,
Yeah.
the father may be 60, but still there's a generation gap. Imagine the son is becoming a father and
Okay.
the father is becoming a grandfather. They don't consider themselves as friends. So coming back to the second point of individualism, I have a different opinion over here.
Okay.
You'll be surprised across the world. I have traveled to at least 20, 22 countries. Family is still the unit across the globe.
Oh,
And you'll be surprised, even in America. Let me tell you, I was surprised because the image that we have about America
yeah.
is this very individual and everybody lives in New York. It's like saying everybody in India lives in Bombay. So, I remember this. My first visit to US was actually not New York.
Oh,
It was a very interesting place called San Antonio.
okay.
If you compare, you are going to Bihar. And I used to travel 2 hours every day from the place I was staying. Because I had gone for a conference to the hall every day, 2 hours going one way and coming back another.
Oh,
And you'll be surprised that it was such a pleasure to know that I used to actually take the bus through
oh,
some remote villages. And the bus stops when it's like going through an ST bus, state transport.
oh.
And believe me, I've found the villagers being so family oriented. They used to come and give us food inside the bus. Can you believe it?
That's interesting.
So, the impression that's what you find on OTT platform, that America is only about the glamour world of Hollywood. Yes, that's also one part, saying that the whole India is only about Bollywood. Sorry. I'm proud to be part of Bollywood. I'm proud to be a Mumbaiker, but I know India is also the tie to cities and villages. Now,
Agree.
coming back, the concept of individualism. Yes, you are absolutely right. That's one of the philosophies. And a
Yeah.
lot of people have written, as you rightly quoted, even Ayn Rand, who
Yeah.
wrote Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, actually started promoting the concept of individualism. Now, let me tell you, in a family culture, you need to also balance both the group and the individual. I'll tell you, I've seen so many joint families. The problem in such joint families is privacy nahi hai.
Ah, agree.
So, that's a frustration. Imagine you got 30, 40 people and you can't even speak to your spouse. You find the family problems. So, the perfect balance of a good family is give everybody some individual space and tackle all the problems collectively. So yes, joint family is such a beautiful model. But if you can take the individualism concept that yes, can I? Like for example, I still need to have my space, right?
Yeah.
And if you're doing this particular, let's say, podcast or interview, you require your space, right? That calmness. At the same time, you have to go out afterwards and have your dinner together, right?
Agree.
So coming back, there are philosophers who looked at saying that yes, individualism is important, but it can't be so to such an extent that you don't require a family. And family cannot be only we. I plus we is equal to family.
Wow, that's a great way to put it, I feel. Sir, keeping the family topic, I want to ask you one more question related to family, because this is something that is a never-ending battle between in a family, is between a Saas and a Bahu, because it happens every now and then in every household. And I need to know, did Chanakya foresee this anyway? Because he might also have seen those battles around him. So, is there anything in the Niti around this? And if yes, how, mm, what about it?
Thanks for the lovely question. I'll tell you something. Saas-Bahu problem is a global problem, not an Indian problem.
Okay.
So many people think Saas-Bahu मतलब वो इंडिया में चलता है ऐसा नहीं है. I want you to watch a movie if you're not seen it. It's called Monster in Law.
Okay.
So think about it. When I saw the movie, I thought, "Acha, so it's not mother-in-law, monster-in-law." It's an American movie, very funny movie. Please watch it. And first time I realized it's actually about woman. So the mind of a woman. So I'll tell you, every species, most of the species have two genders, right?
Yeah.
Male and female, like in human species. Now the thing is that all genders will have their own problems. Like
Agree.
the male have this stupid ego. The
Yeah.
woman have the stupid jealousy among themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a mindset. In fact, there's an ad if you remember. उसकी कमीज मेरे कमीज से सफेद कैसे.
Yeah.
So now coming back to the problem of Saas-Bahu, please understand it is something which is natural yet you can overcome it. And
Okay.
let me tell you, two women fighting, a man should not interfere.
Okay.
In fact, they will crush the man totally together. So I know of some of my students who come with this problem saying that मेरी माँ और मेरी बीवी झगड़ा करते रहते हैं. ऐसा करने दो. You don't interfere. And if you try that, they will come together and kill you. Coming back, how did Chanakya solve the problem? And
Okay.
let me tell you, it's so practical, you will be surprised. So during those days, I'm talking about 4th century BC, roughly 2400 years ago. Please understand, Chanakya is talking about woman in power. So
Yeah.
there is a Raja, he's got a Patni, right? And he's got a Rajamata also, Sahas
Yeah.
and Bahu. You know what Chanakya did? Number one, women require respect. Today we are talking about women empowerment. How do you respect women? Remember, everybody should know these two formulas of Chanakya. Listening to a woman is a respect for a woman.
Okay.
Second, please understand, paying a woman for what she's doing is also respect for a woman. And that's why a
Okay.
lot of people don't feel happy being a homemaker because we don't pay them. They
Agreed.
will highly qualified. I know so many women highly qualified and taking care of their family, but they feel guilty. अगर मैं कहीं काम करती तो मुझे 1 लाख रुपया महीना मिलता.
Agreed.
Correct. So I mean, taking care of children and a family and a house is not a small thing. Now, what did Chanakya do? See, remember his woman, the king's woman, have thousands of servants, so they know how to work. But the
Yeah.
first principle is very important: listen to a woman. So, what did Chanakya do? Here's a solution for all of us, especially the males. Okay, number one, even if it's an urgent matter, you have to go and take the opinion of the lady in the house.
Oh,
For
okay.
example, if there is a war, let's say the enemy has attacked, Chanakya says, first go and discuss with your ministers. Don't go and attack. मैं राजा हूँ. Maybe the ministers will tell you what is the right time to attack. Second, even if the ministers approve it, go and ask the two ladies of your house,
Oh,
the wife and the Rajmata. If they don't approve, you cannot go for a war. And if they approve, which they will most of the time, you have the blessings of 50% of the citizens of the country. Because the world has 50% women, right? And here
agreed.
comes to listen to them, what's their opinion. You cannot go and tell your wife saying that, I have left my job. She'll say, अरे पागल मेरे से एक बार पूछ तो लेते. I got the 2000 notes का bundle. But the second important thing in Arthashastra, let's say the king is paid 1 lakh panas. Now it's 1 lakh rupees. Panas is the unit of measurement of currency of those days. The same amount was given to a Rani and a Rajmata.
Oh,
So why would they? They are like king queens, right? And like Saas-Bahu. No, please understand. I have seen this. The poorest of the poor and the richest of the richest lady also is happy when they get some money. Isn't it true?
that is true.
Chanakya made sure that you should actually make sure the women are paid. And what other woman empowerment you want? They can tell no to a king.
That is true.
I'll tell you one small example. We tried this in a company and we found tremendous success. So let's say only one husband was working. Just giving an example, okay? And there's a wife at home. You know what we did? As a board members, we decided that now onwards, we'll split the salary into two parts.
Oh,
Let's say you're getting 1 lakh rupee, 50,000 every day, every month will be credited to a wife's account.
oh,
Only 50,000 will come to the husband. So even if she's taking care of home, anyway the husband will give. But why not the company giving it directly? You know what was the biggest benefit? Zero attrition.
oh, yeah. That's very impressive. I did not even think of that.
So all the women said, "ये company को छोड़ना नहीं." And
This,
please understand, it's not about money. It's about the respect and
hmm.
direct transfer. Even the government is talking about, financial direct transfer. So
Yeah,
try
yeah,
that everybody should actually pay their mothers, their sisters, their wives, whatever, Please understand, it comes back to you thousand times. That's the blessing that woman gives you. So from Saas-Bahu to monster-in-law, to giving them respect by listening and by contributing financially is the role that we all should play, and that is what Chanakya did.
you said something that is very impressive because even if you look at government schemes, many of the government schemes are linked to the wife's account because it directly gets transferred to the wife's account because at times in lower stratas of economy, people spend more on alcohol, on gambling, so the woman takes the buck more ahead. That's the reason they are also paid through their wife's account, and that is very very impressive. Coming back to government again, uh, how do you look at like foreign policy of the country currently, and what can we draw out from Chanakya? Did he also envision a foreign policy that we currently have, where we are like we will take our own stand? We would not be the latchkey of either A or either B. We would have our own stand because we are 25% of the population. So, how do you look at it, and what do you think about the current external affairs minister?
Yeah. So let me tell you, Chanakya spoke about foreign policy and international relationship in depth. And there
Okay.
are various levels. The first level, as a nation, we have already achieved, and that is
Okay.
called mutual respect. So there are so many countries, I think some 180 countries or 200 countries. Okay, so I think now our passport has got a global value.
Agreed.
thanks to our foreign policy and Prime Minister, the way he goes. So I think the first level, I'm not worried. But Chanakya took it to the next level. Your foreign policy depends on give and take. When each of them or either of them are in problem,
Okay.
if I'm in a problem, somebody has to come and help me, right? It can't be goody goody and saying that I invited you as a chief guest in my function, you invite me as a chief guest in your function. That's okay. But really, when there is a crisis in my country, do you come to help me? I think somewhere we are working on that level when we are sending, vaccines across the globe. But there's a third level which Chanakya spoke about. Foreign policy and international relations, and I mean relationship by even wedding, shadiyan. Do you
Yeah.
know one thing? 2,400 years ago, Alexander came to India during
Yeah.
Chanakya's time, and Alexander was sent back by Chanakya. All of us know that story. But second thing that happened is interesting. When Alexander went, he realized that don't want to leave this country. So he left behind his Senapati, commander in chief Seleucus back in India.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And he said, opportunity milega to attack karna. Nobody wants to leave India, my dear friend. And Chanakya was sharp. An enemy will always return back.
agreed.
Remember this. An enemy will always return back. They are just waiting for an opportunity. You know what Chanakya did? Something very strategic in nature. Don't just kill the enemy, but kill the enmity. How? By actually having the first political wedding ever in the world. International political wedding. You know what he did? The daughter of Seleucus was married to Chandragupta Maurya.
Oh, that is
So
very
think about
interesting.
it. That actually it's a relationship. And even today, if you go to North India, you have the genes of the Greeks in India. So that was that generation. Think about afterwards, India and Greece never fought. We
That is
always
true.
think that if you defeat the enemy, it's over. No, it will come back in some form. So Chanakya thought about very different level of IR. I'm not telling that every politician should get his son and daughter married. That's not the answer. But it's very
That is true.
strategic in nature. So there are a lot of things in the Arthashastra where both international relation and foreign policy has been dealt with. If you want to study that, please remember this chapter called as Mandala Yoni, the circle
Mentally.
of things, Raja Mandala theory. It will teach you a lot in that.
Okay.
Thank
Okay. And what do you think about the current external affairs minister, Government Jaishankar ji? What do you think about him?
To be very frank, I never comment on anybody whom I have not met.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
I can only tell you what I think most of us see his videos, his
yeah, yeah,
public
yeah.
statements. But for me, I would say he's very vocal about it, which is very important because a foreign policy person, a foreign minister, who was also a bureaucrat,
Yeah.
please understand, he's got two combinations. From a bureaucrat to a politician, it's a shift. So I
Okay.
think he's very vocal about it and he gives a lot of Indian examples. So I think we got a good foreign minister. But let me tell you what is going on inside his head, many of us don't know.
Agreed, agreed.
So I
Agreed.
think what is in the public, I think we are very good about it. In fact, his preceder was Sushma Swaraj.
Yeah, yeah.
I was very fortunate to work very closely with her.
Oh, that's
Yeah, very
interesting.
fortunate. In fact, we used to sit in a room and discuss strategies for the nation. Fortunately, she had to leave early. When I say leave early, she had to leave the body only early. But I have actually dealt with so many other parts of foreign policy. For example, right now, nobody actually knows what Ajit Doval,
Yeah,
the NSA, is thinking. That's also part of foreign policy, right? National
agreed.
Security Advisor. I have worked very closely with the previous NSA, Shivashankar Menon.
Okay.
So I think it's not about one person. It's not about the foreign minister or the prime minister. It's about a group of people who are leading the country globally. So I would say right now we got a very fantastic, highly educated foreign minister. But I have nobody to comment about what's happening in his head. I'm sure what's happening in his head is definitely good for our country.
But so looking at the Modi era per se, you said, uh, how do you think these past, let's say, 10 years have been different from the last 60 years of our country? Do you think there has been a significant change in the country's thinking, policy, and standing, or has it been somewhat similar to the past policies only?
Yeah. So let me tell you, there's a concept. It is called continuity of governance.
Okay.
Please read about it if you're interested. What is the meaning of continuity in government? See, when Britishers left us, it is not a one night, overnight, ki chalo main jata hu. I would suggest all the students interested in foreign policy or transfer of power. Please understand these are
Yeah.
two important words. Transfer of power. There's a long process. In fact, students should watch a serial which is available on YouTube called as Samvidhan.
Yeah.
It's a 10 episode series on the formation of Indian Constitution. So the Britishers were still there and the transfer of power happened. So it's a what's called the transfer of power or continuous governance. So Britishers left, but they handed over the power to us. Then we continue. Now what is happening after the Britishers left within our own country? That different parties as the democratic model. So maybe before that 10 years was Manmohan Singh. But remember one thing before that was also BJP era.
Yeah.
So we had Atal Bihari Vajpayee as the team. I've been very fortunate to work even with that BJP group.
Oh, okay.
And of course with the Congress group also. So if you look at from 1947 to 1923, there have been various governments which came and gone for short period, long period. Please understand from 1947 till 2016, it was not a Congress era.
Yeah.
It was majorly a Congress era. Majorly. Like for example, I'll tell you, the tourism concept was actually promoted by Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And I work very closely with the first tourism policy of India and
Oh,
foreign policy of India in a very big way. That time, the very famous actor, his name was Vinod Khanna,
yeah.
was a tourism minister. So I was part of the team, the core team, which actually made something called as Incredible India campaign, which you see as a now the current Modi government has taken it to the next level. Tourism was a concept that was taken by the Vajpayee government. Second interesting thing, the way to integrate all the Indian diaspora was started by Atal Bihari Vajpayee through a concept called as Pravasi Bharatiya Divas.
Oh,
If you study, right now the last 10 years has been the Modi era, but before that was Manmohan Singh era, before that was Vajpayee era, and then you go on and on. But I want to tell you something about continuous government. I don't know what's going to happen after 2024. A lot of people want Modi to come back. I mean, that's good for the country because if we have better options, we should also consider that. But my
yes.
question is very clear that when the next power comes in, if at all, or when Modi is continuing that, is it going to work as a continuous growth? And I'm very positive that in India we have seen from 1947 till now, the India has only been growing. So I think the challenge is not which party or which leader, whether the country is growing or not. And I'll tell you, it's not easy to run a country like India. I'll give you a simple example and indicator. When India got freedom in 1947, our population was roughly 30 or 35 crores.
Yeah.
Today it's 140 crores. What policy of the government can you take care? Population control was a big issue during Indira Gandhi's era because so many people. Suppose I got four children, okay, and I have to take care of them. I can draft a policy, make the economic structures, everything. But imagine suddenly I realize I got 40 children. No planning can work. But the good news is that from 1947 till 2023, India never went back. Of course, it has ups and downs. So my suggestion is that please understand this country runs because of leadership, yes, but because of something that happens in every house. I think what your mummy teaches you or your father tells you in your house is equally important for the development of a country. The way the parliamentarians and the prime minister sitting in the cabinet decide. So my question, I'm absolutely positive that this will be remembered as one of the golden eras of India. No doubt about it. Because I see that your passport when I go abroad today, it's no more saying that that's at some developing country. Imagine
Yeah.
among 180 countries, we are fifth largest economy. It's not small.
That
So
is
my
true.
so my point over here is that we will have our ups and downs. But remember one thing. My question is, at one point there'll be a new prime minister. That time, is India ready for the continuous governance? Not saying that he was bad. I'm going to be better. Sorry, the country should not suffer. the country should lead further with every new leader.
That is true. So I would just like to, as we are coming to the end of the podcast, I would like to ask you, one of the most important part of any government is bureaucracy. And bureaucracy doesn't change. Bureaucracy gets, there is an addition of people to bureaucracy, but it doesn't essentially change. So, sir, what do you think? What an ideal bureaucracy should look like? That's my first question. And second, is the current way to evaluate who becomes a bureaucrat? Let's just say the UPSC or the state service commission exams. Do you think those are better way to go for it, or is there any other better way to look at those things?
Thank you for this wonderful question. Let me tell you, bureaucracy started with taking care of administration. Politicians are at a different level, are elected leaders, but the one who run the country are actually the administrators. Now, I disagree with you when you say that the bureaucracy is not changing; they're permanent. They
Okay.
also get transferred internally,
Yeah.
but yes, they have their own powers because you can transfer them, but you cannot dismiss them. Now coming back, I have done a lot of study and I train the bureaucrats myself. So I train the IAS, IPS, I train IRS. So they are all my like go to these prestigious institutions. Let me tell the history of the so-called bureaucracy. Then you'll understand what is the current status and what we should do in the future. The bureaucracy currently that we have is a form that the Britishers started. Think about it, a small group of people coming from Britain wanted to run this whole country, to administer the whole country. Therefore, they did not have people enough from that country, right? So what they did is that take the best brain. And how do you evaluate the best brains? If you're going to a company for a job, there's an HR department process, right?
Agree.
So what they did, they started this what is called UPSC exams, Union Public Service. Okay,
Yeah.
they start, and then the people have to go through a lot of filters, and the best brains are taken, and they're trained for 2 years. Please understand this. Subhash Chandra Bose was a civil servant. So I definitely, if I have to hire somebody and give them power of the government, I will definitely want the best brains, right? Now here is
Agree.
the catch: the Britishers, by design, wanted the bureaucrats to be corrupt
Okay.
by design. Let me tell you that if you read the British history, there are a lot of references. So I'll give you an example. Why so? When we look at government officers, the typical word that we use is called Babu,
Yeah.
Babugiri, and that comes bureaucracy and all those things. I will tell you, Babu is a very Bengali word. If you look at a Bengali culture, Babu is a very common. It's a respected post, by the way, Babuji. And there's a movie called Anand, Babu Moshai. Now come back. I'll tell you when Britishers came to India, Kolkata was their capital. Now think about it. You've got a huge country to manage. You are taking a local guy, and you are coming all the way from Europe, right? Now you don't know how to manage it. Now you had only one agenda: to take and loot money from India. Now you don't know the language. So what you do, you take somebody, empower him, and give the position and all the benefits. I will not remove you, don't worry. But please fill my coffers.
Oh.
So it's like a salesman telling, मेरे को 100 crore का target है. And remember one thing, I don't know your language. And तो मारो, पीटो, जो करना है करो, लूटो, लेकिन 100 crore. Now look at that person. He was trained that anything about 100 crores will be your incentive.
Oh.
That is how it started. Please study. Don't trust me. So the Babugiri system is that okay, anyway I'm getting my salary, I have to take your money, but what for me? So when you go
Understood.
to government officers, okay, तुमको तो पगार मिल रहा है, वो तो ठीक है, but तुमसे क्या मिल रहा है? And that is my pocket. So in the government circles, there's a joke. People give the marriage of their daughter, the daughter's hand in marriage to check not how much your salary is, but how much your income is beyond your government salary.
That is very true.
So now think about it. The Britishers are gone, but the system continues. Now coming back, is there a way out? 100%. Let me tell you very frankly, nobody in our generation joins a government job to tell that I want to get the award of the most corrupted guy. And I can tell you, the youth actually joins the government bureaucracy after getting selected to serve the country. कोई चोर बन के पैदा नहीं होता. But the system is so corrupted that unfortunately, if you're not part of the system, you feel you're out of it. That's why the prime minister had to announce publicly, when there's 75 years, Independence Day, he said, the five promises he took from all of us to change India. The first one was that I will not support corruption. It's such a deep rooted problem. But the good news is that it's changing. Now, coming back, is that the best method to just take exams and appoint bureaucrats? Maybe one of the methods. But today there are parallel entries.
Oh,
Many people don't know it's called tangent or parallel entries. And you can see somebody like, there are positions in government called CEOs. Many
yeah,
people don't know, and you don't have to go through the exam. Like I get appointed in a lot of government projects. I never wrote the UPSC, but that is okay. So it's like you're a project manager, you are given the power for a temporary period. That's okay. It's like, it's like outsourced thing. It's in fact in India, it's called insourced. So I think, yes, there has to be a machinery which is productive. Yes, if this system is working, great. You have to refine it. That's also great. If outsiders come in, great. If insiders can come in, great. But the central one thing is that we cannot operate in a corrupt system. We have to make it a productive system.
that is true. So, one last question, and then I will leave you to it. So, if you were given 1 minute in every Indian's year, whatever you say would be broadcasted to 140 crore people, what would that be? And uh, again, okay, what would that be from your point of view? And then what would Chanakya say for like that 1 minute?
Yeah. Only one thing. Please meditate for 20 minutes every day.
Okay.
You may surprise, there is the Chanakya part of it. Please understand, meditation is India's gift to the world.
That's
And meditation is not about yogasana. Please understand. And unfortunately, yoga has come to an extent of only yogasanas, physical exercise. That's how the West looks at it. Please understand, all the people in India now already are educated, informed, globally traveled, but the mind is not stable. We have so many distractions, and we have to take decisions now for the world. India is already in a leadership position. And Chanakya called this as a Raja Rishi. An ideal leader is a Raja Rishi. एक राजा but अंदर से ऋषि. So I would say that whatever form of meditation you follow, whichever guru you follow, that's a freedom, right? Because in a house you can have four people and four philosophies, four gurus. If you follow any guru, any type of meditation, that's fine. But if you don't meditate, you will have a lot of mental health problems. Already we are facing that. So I would suggest that one thing for all 140 crore Indians, depending on your availability, every day 20 minutes. I think out of 24 hours, 20 minutes is doable. Meditate because that will make you a great leader from inside and outside.
That was Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai for you. Thank you so much, sir, once again for coming on the podcast. We were, we, I'm very happy that you came. This is my first attempt at podcasting, and I thought that people like you are the best way to start it. So thank you so much, sir, for being a sport coming on the podcast.
So if you like this particular podcast, please give a like, comment on it, and please make sure you share it to everybody. I'm not telling you share with maximum people. Everybody in a contact list should have this, and we'll be happy to spread the Chanakya wisdom across the globe. Thank you so much, Chirag. You've been a wonderful host.
Thank you so much, sir.